What's up, guys? This is Brave, and I'm back with another review of Tyler Perry's Sistas. This is season 2, episode 18, and the episode is titled When It's Midnight. Let's go ahead and talk about it. So we actually start this episode right where we left off, and that is with Gary's proposal to Andy and Karen showing up at her apartment. So Karen, she strolls herself right on into this apartment, and you can already tell she's fed up because not only was Gary not supposed to be there, but also you have her best friend who's just out here blatantly lying to her. So Gary is over here trying to profess his love for Andy and trying to tell Karen how much he really loves her. And she like, go tell that to the other side of the door. Karen is over it. She happens to look down. No, I'm sorry. Gary is like, all right, Andy, I'm going to talk to you later. And she's confused, like, later, like, what is there to talk about? This relationship should be over. And as we know, now Andy is completely head over heels again for Gary. So at this point, Gary has left, and Karen is like, oh, so, like, we lie to each other now? And Andy's response is like, oh, well, what are you doing here? So Karen is like, catching you. Now that can honestly be read in two different ways. This is her catching her in a lie, catching her with Gary, but this also could be her catching her from making a huge mistake. You know what I'm saying? So now we have Andy trying to explain how Gary is this good guy, and I'm like, girl, we've already been through this. You know that he isn't. There's no other way for us to explain that Gary is trash. He put you through a lot unnecessarily, but you want to run behind him like Boo Boo the Fool. You know what, Karen? Just let her be an idiot. So Karen actually happens to notice the Tiffany's box, and she's like, what is this? I know this married man did not just propose to you. And Andy is like, oh yeah, he did. And I'm like, did you just not hear the sentence that came out of her mouth? Did that married man just propose to you? Like, of course, Gary's trying to say that he's getting a divorce and how Jasmine magically signed these papers. But again, I still don't trust Gary, and he is just not a good guy. So Andy needs to get it in her head that Gary ain't the one. So at this point, of course, Andy does not want to hear what Karen has to say, right? So she's like, oh, well, I think that you need to leave. And Karen is like, well, I think you need to wake the hell up. So here's the part that gets me, though, because Andy, she then says, no, that would be you, my friend. And I'm like, what does Karen need to wake up about? Because at the end of the day, baby, Karen has moved on from Zach. She left her problem. And the fact that Andy keeps bringing up Zach, it aggravates me. Because at this point, you're sitting up here consistently comparing your situation to Karen's situation. And they are two different things, sweetheart. First of all, Karen let go of Zach. Karen has not, talked to Zach. Well, except for, when she confronted him about the credit card fraud. But besides that, she's not clinging on to Zach. She's not, still trying to be in contact with him. She let that relationship sail on, and now she's talking to Aaron. Now she's interested in a new man. I don't understand how Andy has it in her mind that her situation is similar to Karen's in any way, shape, or form, because it's really not. When you really think about it, like, yes, when Aaron met Karen, he was technically still married, but he was going through a divorce. Gary was cheating on his wife to be with Andy. That's two different things. So after Aaron's wife died, he continued to pursue Karen. Andy's situation, Gary almost threw his wife over the parking structure and then she almost died. You see how that's two different things? And he still continued to see Andy? I'm sorry, but to me, for me, that's two different things. Also, if you even want to bring the Zach situation into this, yes, Zach cheated on Karen. He almost gave somebody else a baby, all this stuff. But she let him go. She finally let that man go. Andy, the only reason why you wasn't messing with Gary half the time was because he was in jail. And then you tried to play along with Paris. But let's be honest, there's no way that Andy was ever going to end up with Paris. She's too bougie. Her nose is too high in the air to end up with somebody who's a custodian. Come on now, let's be honest here. Let's call a thing a thing. So, like I said, there is no situation that Karen has had that is similar to Andy's for her to continuously compare these two ladies' situations. Also, another thing that irritates me about Andy, I'm sorry to always rag on Andy, but her character aggravates me. So, you know what? I'm not even going to say just Andy. This is one thing that irritates me about women in general. Now, when you think about this, Andy has known Karen since probably college or maybe even before college. I'm not really sure. And we all can see that Gary is a terrible man, okay? He's done some horrible things. And the fact that she is choosing Gary, she's clearly choosing Gary over Karen, right? Here's my thing about women. I need for people to realize that, yes, you may have just met this man, known him for a year, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe even longer, but this girl has been riding with you for years. There is no way that she's trying to steer you in the wrong direction. There is no way that Karen is trying to, pull a wool over your eyes and hold you back from being with a great man. No. She sees all the BS that he puts you through. She sees all the BS that he does all the time. The things that you are too blinded by love to see. So I personally do not like when women, they decide that, I'm just going to go ahead and go with this man, and when things end up bad, you want to come back to that friend and be like, hey girl, how's it going? Ain't no more hey girl. Because when I tried to warn you, you wasn't listening. Like, I just find it to be so interesting that society has really taught us that, once you become an adult and once you start having relationships, your friendships no longer matter, and the things that the people who have been riding with you for years have said, it means nothing. It holds no weight because this new person that you met matters that much more. I'm sorry, that's BS that we've been taught over the years. I'm going to go ahead and say it. Also within this scene, I cannot lie, I did laugh when Karen tried to snatch the ring. I mean, I guess she was going to drop it down the drain and then, turn the water on. So, yeah, I don't know what was supposed to happen, but them fighting over a ring, over a sink, I cannot. I'm just like, Tyler, what is this? Like, you couldn't have them fight somewhere else? This is weird. Okay, also in this scene, so the fact that Karen is trying to tell her, like, he ain't worth it. And here goes Andy talking about he's worth it to me. I said, you know what? Karen, at that point, what you should have done was like, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and leave. Don't you call me. Don't text me. Don't show up to my house. Because at this point, Andy, we ain't friends no more. Like, at that point, I definitely would have ended this friendship. Because ain't no way you gonna keep throwing Zach in my face. I'm over here trying to help you get your life right. And then you gonna sit up here and be like, he is worth it to me. This man done bruised your ribs. You done cried about these bruised ribs, which you never went to the hospital for in the first place. He's done that. He had your assets and your bank accounts frozen. You couldn't even get no money out the bank. Your apartment, you couldn't even go into your apartment. They took everything. You lost your job. Listen. Andy lost so much all at the same time playing around with Gary. But nope, now she want to chase after him. Karen, let her go. Let her do her thing. Let her chase after Gary and look stupid. So, next thing you know, you have her barking. Andy was barking at Karen at this point about all the things that Gary is doing, because his wife has signed those divorce papers and he has a counselor. I'm like, yeah, he's had a counselor for like 2 days. Relax. Stop acting like it's been like 3 years and he's changed. Gary's the same person. Cut it out. And honestly, if I was Karen, I would have left. There's no way I would have stayed there, because at one point when we got to the end of this argument, Andy, she started hollering for Karen to leave. And because I guess Karen was like, she was trying to stay there, to continue this conversation. Andy was done, and she's like, leave. And then she stomps off to her room. And I'm like, girl, this is too much for me at this point. Because Karen, you want better than me, because I would have left already. I would have been done with Andy. And then Andy, as far as you, girl, not stomping like a child. Like, who does that? But let me go ahead and talk about this next scene, because this is another girl who aggravates me. Sabrina. All right, so we get Sabrina and Jacoby. They still out here at the bar. And I'm sorry, but he was cool at first, like on the last episode. But by this episode, he got real creepy. Because, like, their conversation at the bar, it was a bit weird once he started giving her all those random compliments. Like, I like your style. I like your body. I like your hair. Blah, blah, blah. I'm just like, you a little cornball. And I don't like it. I just don't like it. So, basically, he wants to get another drink. She ready to go. She doesn't want to drink anymore. And he's like, okay, well, we can get a drink at your place. I'm sorry, not at his place, because he may have some roommates or something. But he wants to go have a drink at Sabrina's place. And she allows him to talk her into doing that. And I'm like, Sabrina, really? So you're going to let this man come into your home so that he can have another drink and then go home, even though you're at a bar and the bar serves drinks until they close? All right, girl. Red flag. And not that it's a red flag that he's going to try to do something, but it's a red flag as in, Sabrina, use your brain. You're already at a bar. Why would you go back home with him? Regardless of you working with him. Like, come on, girl. So, like I said, she gets talked into this. And what's annoying about Sabrina is that she does this, like, what can I call it? She tries to do like this, like, I'm just such a sweet girl and I'm so innocent, but I'm still gonna like call you out and be like, but I'm your manager. And I'm just like, girl, either you're going to fully try to pursue something with Jacoby, or you're going to stop wasting his time. Because it doesn't make sense for you to like sit in his face and be like, oh, yeah, me and you, we can, hang out sometime. That could be cool. And then in the next breath be like, well, I'm your manager. Do you make enough money? Like, come on. Come on, Sabrina. So she decides that she's going to drive them to her place. And I'm just like, first of all, where's his car going to be? So he's just going to leave it at the bar? Or does he even have a car? See, I have all these questions. But let's go ahead and talk about this next scene. So we next have Aaron and Karen. They are both in their cars and they're having a conversation. You know, she's just telling him how she's stressed out about Andy and all Andy's drama. And he's like, hold it. Just hold that in until I'm there with you, that we can process it together. I'm like, okay, cool. I see you, Aaron. Okay. There you go. You being supportive of your girl, Karen. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and go into this next scene, which is Danny and Preston, as well as his sister, who's at her house. So they're having dinner, and at this point, Danny is rude. I mean, like, the level of rude that she's on, I would have been very uncomfortable if I was Preston or his sister, because I feel like I get it. He invited his sister over and you didn't know about it. Okay, go, pull him to the side and then have a conversation and be like, hey, I wish you would have texted me and gave me a heads up or something like that. But it did not have to be her being extremely rude and just disrespectful, honestly. I mean, I know last week when we saw her and she realized that his sister was there, she took the bottle of wine to the head. So now she has this messed up attitude. His sister finally realizes that, it's time for her to leave. So she gets her things and Preston is like, well, let me walk you out. So he goes to walk her out. And she's like, no, just go ahead and talk to Danny, handle that with her. And she goes out the door. So when Preston and Danny have a conversation about this, Danny does this thing that really aggravates me. It's like she never opens up and just say what the problem is. So that way her and Preston can be on the same page. She wants him to leave because she's that upset that he invited his sister over. So he gets his bag. First of all, I just want to know what was in that little bag. That was a weekend overnight bag. I just want to know what was in there. So he grabs his bag and he's heading towards the door. And she's like, wait, I don't really want you to leave. I just want you to go for a walk and then come back. So that way she can gather her thoughts. I'm like, really, Danny? You are really stretching this out. I understand she feels some type of way about his family, but his sister technically didn't do anything to her. And I also feel like maybe because of Tyler's writing, it's quite convenient that his sister just happened to be flying in right after, his brothers decided to attack her. But I just think that Danny's approach to all this is stupid. I'm just going to call it out like I see it. It's stupid. Her catching that attitude at that dinner table, out of control. All right, y'all. We finally get to Fatima and the ultimate hater, Hayden. He gets to her place. He brings some wine. And she's like, oh, how was your day? Just trying to, figure him out a little bit. And when he ends up asking her how was her day, she's like, oh, it was interesting because, Zach, he's in jail. Now, here goes Hayden trying to play like he don't know nothing. He's over here like, really? I mean, I knew he was a bad dude, but, oh, wow. You can't really help those type of guys pretty much. That's what he want to say. And Fatima is just like, so you don't want to know why he's in jail or anything? Because keep in mind, Hayden is a part of this program. So therefore, if you're a part of Chainbreakers, you would probably want to know what the person got arrested for. And he's like, nope, I just don't even want to know. He does not want to know because he already knows because he's the one who set Zach up. So now Fatima has to break it down to him that she knows that he's the one who set Zach up because she said that her neighbor had doorbell cameras and they saw some guy named Leon put the drugs in the truck and all this stuff, and how this guy Leon, whoever he is, he basically does whatever Hayden says. So she's like, I know that this was you, so you better call all your judge friend, lawyer friends, whoever he needs to call to get Zach out of jail, because she wants Zach out that night. Now, keep in mind, throughout this whole conversation, she never mentioned that credit card fraud. So, I feel like there's still a storyline there that has something to do with this credit card fraud, because what Hayden did had nothing to do with the credit card fraud. So I feel like we gonna figure out who made those charges on Karen's card a little bit later in the season. Probably on like the last episode. Y'all know how Tyler do. So now Fatima is just like, dude, are you that dumb, first of all, to plant all this? Keep in mind, you did this using the company truck. You know what I mean? Like, that could have torn down the entire program, first of all. And secondly, like, are you that infatuated with Fatima for you to, go through all of this? And he's, like, still trying to talk about how she's the woman for him and how they need to be together, pretty much. And Fatima is like, listen, I tried to like a man like you, but I don't. You're not my type. I don't like you. I don't want you. Your sex game is whack, pretty much. And that was that. Like, she was fed up, and, she told him to leave her apartment, and she called him out. I was happy that Fatima called him out, because the guy that we met, as far as Hayden is concerned, like, he was trying to help Andy, figure out her stuff with Gary. He seemed super cool. But after that, I mean, the character that Hayden is, Lord Jesus, he's horrible. Like, there's no way that you were that infatuated with somebody who you hooked up with one time, and then you have the audacity to try to get somebody who she's seeing put in jail with drugs. Like, whew, he's horrible. I don't need to see Hayden anymore. Alright, so let's go ahead and get to this next scene, which is Maurice. He is going to the gay club that, they all have been to before. So he goes to the bar and he sees, what was that guy's name? James, I think. Anyways, the guy who hooked up with Danny. And he's like, why did you say that Calvin was doing crystal meth? Like, that's not true. So he's like, I know what I saw, and it was Calvin. So Maurice and him are going back and forth about if it was Calvin or not. And the little white guy, I don't even know his name, but the other bartender, he's like, wait, you're talking about Calvin? Why would you say that about Calvin? Calvin is not on drugs. Calvin is clean as a whistle. And the guy's he's adamant about saying, no, I know what I saw. I know that it was Calvin. And I'm just like, is he getting Calvin confused with somebody? But no, he didn't, because he's like, as a matter of fact, Calvin, he was in here earlier, like an hour ago. And then Maurice is like, wait, what do you mean he was here an hour ago? Because honestly, like, why is Calvin hanging out in the gay bar? And I'm like, I'm not judging him for hanging out in a gay bar, but I'm just saying, like, for Calvin to be this straight guy, I'm pretty sure his parents don't go to this bar anymore. Like, why are you hanging out in here? So they just kind of keep going with this conversation about, well, who was he with? Because Maurice is like, well, Calvin told me that he was going on a date with a woman. And they're like, well, no, he was with some fine black dude, and it definitely was not a woman. So next, Maurice is like, okay, well, let me get a margarita. They didn't have no more mix, so this sends James away. So he just wants to talk to the other bartender, and he's like, so what's this about Calvin and this guy? And like, what were they talking about? What were they in here for? And the guy's like, I don't know, but he was just talking to this guy like an hour ago. And like, that's all he knew. So now Maurice has it in his mind, like, I need to figure out what Calvin is doing with this guy. And I'm like, can Maurice get some business of his own? Like, he's always in Sabrina's business, and now he's, all in Calvin's business. Like, let's give Maurice a different storyline. Can we give him a love interest or something? Let's make it interesting. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the next topic. So we have Karen and Aaron. They're talking about the whole situation with Andy and Gary and how Karen does not want to see her friend hurt. And she also is not a fan of Gary at all. So within this conversation, one thing that I just realized within this situation is that when Andy was doing all that barking about how Gary was saying a counselor and all this stuff, was she talking about Aaron, as in Aaron is the counselor that Gary is saying? I'm sorry, but I feel like that's recent. Like, and the fact that, like, in this conversation, Aaron is trying to, like, vouch for Gary, talking about some, oh, you just have to let them handle that. And I'm just like, he bruised her ribs. Like, he physically harmed this girl. And you're on the same page as him to try to get back with her? I don't even understand. I'm sorry. I was really rooting for Aaron. But within this conversation, I did not care for his opinion. Because I'm very much like Karen. If my friends are doing stupid things, and I understand I'm not their mother, but I'm definitely going to have an opinion. And I'm definitely going to call you out like you're doing something stupid and you should be better than this. As far as Aaron talking about how, basically Andy has to make the decision for herself, he's right. It is Andy's decision to be with Gary. If she want to get her ass beat every day, we just gonna go ahead and let her get her ass beat. But it is not Karen's job to stick around and watch. And I feel like that is the point where we need to come to with Sistas. That these two, I feel like, are no longer going to be sisters, with Andy trying to be with Gary. Because at the end of the day, I can't sit there and watch you get beat up. I can't sit there and watch you be in an abusive relationship and I'm supposed to still, like, ride for you. Because one day, there's always that chance that you may have to end up in the hospital, or worse, you may end up dead. I don't want that on my conscience. So let me go ahead and step away from the whole situation, and maybe we won't be friends anymore, so that I can have a clear conscience. You know what I'm saying? So the end of that scene, though, like, Karen was all stressed out about this, and he's like, oh, how can I make it better? And she's like, oh, I got an idea. And then they run off to the room. And I said, where y'all running off to? To go play Uno? Because y'all not doing nothing. So where we running to? Let's go ahead and move on. All right, so we get back to Sabrina and Jacoby, and they are at her house, still drinking, and she's ready for him to go home. She's like, thanks for the drinks. Have you called your ride share or whatever? And he's like, yeah, I already did. And she's like, okay, well, let me see. And he, like, shows her his phone a little bit. And he's like, yeah, see right here. And she's like, why won't you let me see your phone? As in, why won't you let me hold your phone, I'm guessing? And he's like, well, then why don't you let me let me see your phone? And she's like, well, we got to get to know each other a little bit better first. And I'm like, why is this even a conversation? Like, he flashed his phone to you so that way you can see that he called a ride share. Why are you trying to, like, see in his phone? Sabrina, get you some better conversation, girl. So they're like, oh, yeah, well, this was nice. I don't even see how, because we got no conversation out of them. The only thing we got was them going out for drinks, them drinking, and her talking about Maurice and Alonzo. Sure, I guess that equates to a great time. So now it's time for him to leave. And they give each other this awkward hug. She thinks that is his phone in his pocket. And it's like, no, girl, that was not his phone. His phone is in his hand. So now she's like, oh, we doing that now. And she's, first of all, I'm sorry, but, like, he was like, yeah, because I am a man and I find you attractive. And I was just like, I just don't see it for these two. Like, it's something about Sabrina and Jacoby. I just feel like I hate her little innocent act. And then also with him, I feel like he's just coming on too strong. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm just not really feeling this. Like, I thought that I would like Sabrina and Jacoby, but I don't know. Maybe it's just the way that it's written that I'm not feeling it. So at this point, it's time for him to leave. And she tells him to cover up because people from the moon can see what he's working with. And I'm like, oh, okay. Never heard that one before. So he ends up leaving. All right, so we are back with Fatima, and she's sitting in her living room, and there's a knock at the door. Oh, who is it? Daddy's home. It's Zach. So Zach ends up coming home. She gives him this big hug, and they go over by the TV, and they have a conversation. He just wants to know, like, what type of miracle did she just pull because he's out of jail? And she's like, well, you were set up by Hayden, but don't worry, I got him. He's probably going to leave you alone. And Zach is like, nah, I know dudes like him. He's not going to stop. So Fatima just assures him that, like, don't worry about it. Just get through, I guess, fixing these next couple of houses and things will be good. And he's like, I feel like he's appreciative, but also I feel like Zach is not good with words at all. Like, I don't know if that's just the way he was written or what, but I feel like he's terrible with words. Like, he never fully expresses how he's feeling, and that annoys me. But it was good to see them have this moment. They shared a kiss at one point, and I'm like, okay, Fatima and Zach, I can see this working. So now Zach, he's supposed to go take this shower, and he's trying to get her to join him. And she's like, nah, you already messed my hair up once. You gonna have to do that on your own. And I'm like, Zach, if you don't go wash that gel off of you, like, you have been in jail for, like, I don't know how long at this point. Couple of days, couple of hours, I don't know. But go ahead and wash those prison walls off of you. Go ahead and just wash all the bars and the cell off of you so that way you can be clean. So we now have Danny and Preston. Danny is she's like watching TV. Preston finally comes back home, and they talk about what her problem was. And she goes on about how, she's sitting at the dinner table and his sister has a huge rock on her finger, and how, his family comes from money. Like, his brothers mentioned that to her. And she's like, I don't even want you for your money. I never even knew you had money. And he's like, do you know these are some special limited edition Garth Brooks boots or something like that? And then he's like, you know what? Never mind. But he's like, this is all temporary. Like, where you're at right now is not where you're going to be forever. And I really do love that he's so supportive of Danny, even though if I was him, I probably would have hit the road a long time ago, because baby girl comes with a lot of issues. But I feel like he definitely knows the right things to say to her, especially once they have, like, these real conversations. I will say that I was surprised that was her reasoning. Like, I thought that she was going to tell him, I was just really upset that first I was ambushed by your brothers, and that made me very uncomfortable, and I didn't know what to expect with your sister. This is just too soon for me, or something like that. Not that, oh, I wanted my first impressions to be better with her. And I'm like, girl, she already know you work the front desk at the airport. Like, she know you not balling out of control. She know that you not making, like, stacks of money. Come on now. Relax, Danny. So that was pretty much that scene. They made up, and seems like they're on good terms now. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about this last scene, which is Maurice. He is coming home, and he's hearing all these noises, all these sounds. Oh, where is it coming from? Calvin's room. So he puts his ear to the door, and he's like, oh, wait. Calvin is with somebody right now doing some things, and it's clearly two guys' voices. So he goes and puts his stuff down on the couch, and next thing you know, there's this chocolate man who comes out of the room with no shirt on. And I'm just like, oh, okay. And that's where the episode ended. Knowing Tyler Perry, though, I feel like this is going to be some other type of situation or something. They probably going to be working out or something. Who knows? But we shall see. Let me know what you guys thought about this episode, and I will talk to you guys in the next one. Go ahead and like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. Bye, guys.